upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle 2 movie and a new cartoon coming out, we figured we had to return to this genre. And since we already made all the Ninja Turtle weapons as one, we figured we'd go with a villain. We as a team decided to do the Shredder helmet, but Ilya decided to mix it up even more and make Super Shredder's helmet. I'm Matt.
I'm Kerry.
We are the Stagmer brothers of Baltimore Knife and Sword. We're going to be building some of your favorite weapons, and some weapons that you've never seen before.
This is Man-at-Arms, Reforged.
Shredder's helmet is obviously based on a Japanese kabuto helmet. It is far from being traditional. However, in about the 17th century, the Japanese started stepping away from their traditions and copying Western armor constructions, or even actually using Western armor. The current project is completely far away from the traditional kabuto construction, where the mon, the frontal piece, provides the most protection, and the back is made out of a soft, coif-type design, which is an absolutely horrible design for a helmet, especially for such a supervillain like Shredder. So I'm going to change it up and make a closer to a traditional kabuto construction for the skull cap. Deal with it.
After using a piece of soapstone to trace his pattern onto his material, Ilya uses the hand plasma torch to go ahead and cut his pattern out.
After having cut out the helmet halves on the plasma, I'm going to trim off the rag. The rag is a very uneven and burnt part of the material that has to be removed before any of the metal forming process can begin. Otherwise, it will try to crimple on itself and create cracks, and we definitely don't want cracks. Since even the Beverly shear creates a very sharp burr on the edge, I have to remove it with a file. Otherwise, the burr will act just like the rag and create stress points and might compromise the process. And now, it's perfectly safe. I started raising the helmet halves. That is a process that's done usually hot for steel, where the piece is bent over a stake using radial symmetry. Like this, like this, like this. And as it bends, this edge shrinks and gets thicker and thicker, and this part doesn't get thinner. If I would have used dishing for this piece, the outside of the helmet would have been thinner than the crest. And the outside is usually where the hits come. So raising is the way to go.
After hours of hammering, you can see that the helmet half is finally starting to take shape. It's going to mimic that on the next half, and we'll be ready to put them together as one.
At this stage, the helmet halves are fully raised. And now it's time to do the primary grinding that cleans up all the scales and some of the unevenness of the material that allows me to proceed onto forming the ridges on the helmet. I've marked the locations for where my ridges or flutes are going to be. What the flute will do, I'm going to imitate the Japanese lamination construction as I've already done in the second half. Normally, the Japanese helmet is constructed of multiple plates up to 100 or even more that are either riveted or laced together to create a skull cap. Now that takes too much time and is not as stable of a construction as a solid helmet. However, I have to make it look traditional, just like post-17th century Japanese already have done. As you can see, the ridges are all set. However, they're a little bit round right over here, right over here, right over here. Now, we don't want that because we need an illusion of overlapping plates. So, I take my planishing hammer that has a flat face and use the same fluting stake to crisp up this edge right here. And once it's crisp, it has the sharp step that creates that nice illusion. So I've marked the holes with my punch set on the connector plates to go in the front and the back of the helmet. Now these holes will be drilled out like I did on the other plate and connected to the pieces. Having marked the holes, I proceed to drilling them. Now these are some of the relatively few rivets that actually hold the helmet together. I'm going to drill the rest of the side plates and insert decorative rivets that create the illusion of a laminated construction of an old traditional Kabuto helmet. With each couple holes, I insert my tool to keep the plates aligned and prevent them from sliding from side to side.
There's a ton of holes to be drilled on this helmet, and if Ilya gets off on just one of them, it'll really throw the whole look of this project off. After tracing his pattern with a piece of sandstone onto the sheet metal, Ilya uses the hand torch to cut it out. He then hands off the sheet metal to me. I go to the 8-inch wheel and clean up the lines, and now he's ready to start raising. After heating the metal, Ilya begins banging away on the mod. For the first hour or so, this isn't going to look like much. But every hammer blow is calculated, and after a while, it's going to start taking a very familiar shape. Took a piece of 1/4-inch material and curved it to the desired shape. Then Ilya used the torch to heat up his sheet metal and match that curve.
While Ilya is busy with the helmet, I'm gonna forge 2 of Shredder's wrist gauntlet blades. I'm gonna use 1084 3/16 by 1.5" flat bar. They'll be fully heat treated, razor sharp, to slice some turtle scum.
First thing Sam has to do is make that 90-degree curve in this piece of metal. He goes to the hardy hole, bends it over, then moves to the flat of the anvil, straightens everything out, goes back to his heat, starts again.
At this point, I'm realizing that I have to make an extra tool to get inside the mod of the helmet to continue my work. It's going to be kind of like this tool, a hardy tool, but without the second side, so I can slide it in and start planishing.
The best part about being an armorer and a blacksmith is that if you don't have a tool you need, you can just make one.
What I can do now is sneak in upon that ridge, sharpen it up, crisp it, flange the sides, and prepare them on for the serrations.
While Ilya hot forms the Mon, I'm gonna go ahead and start on that second pair of shredder claws.
Since this is an early 90s build, I figured I'd show you guys how BKS used to do things in the early 90s before we had a CNC plasma or even power hammers. So what I've done is I've taken 2 pieces of 3/16 chromoly, tack welded them on the corners. I'm just gonna take a Sharpie, draw my pattern on, and grind this baby to shape. Now I'm just gonna move to the sander, hog all this material off, then I'll go to the 2-inch wheel and start creating some of those smaller radiuses. Now that Sam has his bends forged in, he can start drawing out the blade and refining the shape on the points. Now that I got the final shaping where I want it to be, I'm gonna go ahead and grind off this last corner of weld, split them apart, and start edging, and then we'll go straight to heat treat. Since my claws are made out of 4130 chromoly, I'm going to heat these a lot hotter than you're used to seeing and quench them right into water.
For the 2 forged shredder claws, I chose to take the shape of a kusarigama, a Japanese farming implement, often used by the ninja to deadly effect. I'm going to take these rough forgings to the 24 grit first, and then on through the 80, 120, and 220, and then to the heat treat.
Sam forged his claws out of 1084. They're a lot higher carbon than what I used. So he's just going to heat his up, be really careful with his temperatures, and quench in oil.
Right now, the Mon is prepared to introduce the serrations present in the center and the sides of the helmet. I place them on my little micro stake right here. A cold spot will form, indicating the point of contact. Then I use a small hammer to offset the central ridge of the Mon. That will indicate my serration point. Then I'll use a saddle punch to chase in the serration. I've started working on the Menthol Mask for the helmet. The menthol is the piece that protects the plate. Normally they're not attached to the helmet, but rather tied into the head directly. I'm using a torch, a chisel, and a hammer to give it the form.
It may seem kind of silly that Ilya's using our old rickety sander to do the polishing on this, but sometimes the old things work best. This is a sander that Kerry made himself probably 30 years ago, but it has a nice soft wheel, just the right radius that he needs. But just remember, every tool matters.
Since this part of the helmet is already hard and we can't just simply cut it, Matt will be using the sander to create the final form.
You guys have seen a lot of different heat treats on man-at-arms. Pretty sure you've never seen a helmet heat treated in all one piece.
John now locates and welds the claws onto the backing plates. Coming out of the furnace at critical temperature, they take the helmet and quench directly into water. It will have to go into temper afterwards, or it'll be too brittle.
Looks like everything stayed nice and true. Ilya did the hard part. Looks awesome. Can't wait to wear this thing.
I smell turtles.
Now it's my turn to go to the sanders and clean everything up and make it look pretty.
Now that the helmet is hardened, tempered, and cleaned up, Ilya can place the rivets in the false lames.
This is gonna be the back plate for Shredder. It's also gonna be my straps for my claws.
To get the desired color and effect, Matt actually mixes black and red dyes as he's working this leather.
It's gonna look pretty black right now, but when it dries, you'll see some of the red highlights pop through the black.
Ilya now laces the chainmail onto the leather. This will form the back plate for the helmet.
Ilya really went way out of his way to show you guys some really neat historical techniques in crafting this helmet. Good luck to those little turtles trying to take on Super Shredder with this helmet and our handcrafted claws.
If you guys are Man-at-Arms fans or sword fans in general, this is the game for you. Click on the trailer below and download it now.